Welcome back to the 7th episode of the Writing Process. Today we will learn about the different literary genres, and in the upcoming videos each genre will be discussed in depth. Genre is the organization of literature into categories based on the type of writing the piece exemplifies through its content, form, or style. In other words, genre categorizes movies, books. Categorizing books makes it easier for the viewer to discover what he or she likes and will want to read. Putting a movie into a particular genre or category does not diminish the quality of the movie by assuming that if it can be put into a genre, the movie is ordinary and lacks originality and creativity. Genres are ways of writing and speaking that help people interact, communicate, and work together. In other words, genres reflect the things people do, and they are always evolving because human activities change over time to suit new social situations and fresh challenges. Genres do offer somewhat stable patterns for responding to typical situations. More importantly, though, they reflect how people act, react, and interact in these situations. One of the most popular examples of genre is fiction. Fiction refers to a story that comes from a writer's imagination, as opposed to one based strictly on fact or a true story. In the literary world, a work of fiction can refer to a short story, novella, and novel, which is the longest form of literary prose. Every work of fiction falls into a subgenre, each with its own style, tone, elements, and storytelling devices. In terms of literature, fiction refers to the prose of short stories, novellas, and novels in which the story originates from the writer's imagination. These fictional literary forms are often categorized by genre, each of which features a particular style, tone, and storytelling devices and elements. It's important to note that, as a literary device, genre is closely tied to the expectations of readers. This is especially true for literary subclassifications. There are many examples of genres and subgenres. The movies, books, literature, and entertainment you enjoy fall into one of these genres. Now that you have a solid understanding of genres, dive into theme examples in literature. As a literary device, genre is like an implied social contract between writers and their readers. This does not mean that writers must abide by all conventions associated with a specific genre. However, there are organizational patterns within genre that readers tend to expect. Genre expectations allow readers to feel familiarity with the literary work and help them to organize the information presented by the writer. In addition, keeping with genre conventions can establish a writer's relationship with their readers and a framework for their literature. Genre consists of 4 elements or parts: character, story, plot, and setting. The elements of story, plot, setting, and character equal a specific category of movie. These elements are discussed regarding how their variations create a different category of movie. This is further assisted by the 3-act structure, which is a model used in narrative fiction that divides a story into 3 parts or acts, often called the setup, the confrontation, and the resolution. Act 1. The first act typically starts with exposition, one or more scenes that establish the world of the story. The setup involves introduction of the characters, their story world, and some kind of inciting incident, typically a conflict that propels us into the second act. Act 1 has to be tight. You want to grip the reader from the opening pages and keep the story moving forward. A meandering Act 1 will make the reader's mind wander, and then you're dead in the water. The act concludes with some sort of turning point that launches the action into Act 2. Act 2. A story's middle act consists of a rising action that leads to a midpoint, then devolves into a crisis. The middle of your story should raise the stakes. You want the audience to keep watching. This is the main chunk of the story and often leads us to the worst possible thing that can happen to the character. We're thrust into the forward motion of the story, and our characters have to start trying and failing to achieve what they want. The second act typically ends with another turning point that makes it seem as if the protagonist will fail. This is sometimes called the dark night of the soul. Your characters spend Act 2 going deeper into the mystery, learning more about why they love each other, and get pretty far into their road trip. Act 3. The third act begins with what's known as a pre-climax. This consists of events leading up to a climactic confrontation in which the hero faces a point of no return. They must either prevail or perish. Act 3 is where everything comes to a head. Characters have to confront their feelings, desires, and goals. What's awesome about Act 3 is that it's where you start to see all your hard work pay off. Emotional beats are all about to hit home. Act 3 is about tying up loose ends and sending your characters off into the sunset. Finally, the story de-escalates in a denouement, where the events of the climax wind back down into normal life. So again, each act has their own set of guidelines that help develop, build, and resolve a story. Now that you understand all 3 acts, you can comprehend why 3-act structure is a screenwriter's best friend. Sure, there are exceptions to every rule, but you have to master act structure before you attempt to subvert it. If you know the rules, it's easier to surprise audiences as well. If you prefer to be hyper-organized in your writing process, it may make sense to keep the 3-act story structure in mind from the very beginning. It can be a useful planning tool to think of the story in terms of exposition, inciting action, rising action, and beyond. Just remember when you are writing a novel or a screenplay that good stories don't start with templates for act breaks. They start with memorable characters, vivid world building, and a protagonist whose journey is worth following. Once you have those in place, a 3-act structure will likely naturally reveal itself. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned and subscribe to watch the next episode of The Writing Process. Happy writing!